is our distribution panel. It is focused on distribution options for your project. With us tonight are three incredible people to help lead our discussion, and there's an opportunity for you to ask questions as well. But first, let me introduce our presenters. First, independent producer Brian Hartman is to my left right here. Brian has ferried over 20 films into distribution. He's worked on hundreds of films in total. He has had a film in Sundance, and he has helped to distribute films through major motion picture studios. So that's a little bit about Brian's sort of background. Give it up for Brian Hartman. To Brian's left is WQED producer and creator of WQED's Filmmakers Corner, Minette. She has produced several documentaries and is a multi-Emmy Award winner. Please give it up for Minette. And to Minette's left is Film Pittsburgh's executive director, Kathryn Spitz Cohan. Kathryn runs 4 film festivals as well as a teen screen education program. She deals with hundreds of filmmakers and film distributors every year, and she has done it for over 21 seasons, as well as she is an actor herself. Please give it up for Kathryn Spitz Cohan. Thank you all for being here so much. I'd like to just start with a very basic question, and I think that will spin us into many directions. Let's just imagine I am a filmmaker. I have completed a project, the most Herculean task, right? I have made a thing, and whether that is a documentary or a fiction piece, whether it is a feature or a short film or a web series or maybe a pilot for a TV show, it's all of these things. I know all of you are working on various things and they fit one of those things. What do I do? What is the next thing that I should do? I made my thing, what do I do? Who wants to start?
Would you like to start?
Thank you, PJ. Has everyone given it up to PJ tonight? So I think it's really important to know what you want with your film. And from my position where I sit, my job, I would say, whatever you do, don't put it on the internet for free. Hold off on that. And I would also say, wherever you're from, check out your local film festival, because that's where you want to start. We always want to give precedence to our local filmmakers. So that's where I would start. And that doesn't mean that so for Pittsburgh Shorts, the short film festival we do, we require a Pittsburgh premiere. But if you showed it to 5 of your friends to get feedback in the comfort of your living room, that's not a problem. That's a good thing, actually, to show it to your peers and get feedback. So that's those would be mine from where I sit. Check out your local film festival, see when they run, see when their deadlines are, and submit your film. We want to see them.
I would say be flexible. Maybe you are very committed to the wonderful 40-minute or 30-minute film that you've made, the short, but maybe you're not really sure which platform is going to take it or is going to be best for you. So while you've got a little bit of time on your hands, while you're waiting to figure out where that film's going to go, maybe you want to make that 5-minute cut or that 20-minute cut. Speaking strictly from a television point of view, We need things to be in a 26-minute increment for a half an hour show and no more than 55 minutes for an hour-long program. But if you're married to that 90-minute cut, then you've cut out a whole bunch of people who can't show your film. So if maybe you're figuring out what your game plan's going to be, maybe that's the time to cut that extended trailer. Maybe it's the time to make that shortened version. Maybe it's the time to think about cutting it into a limited series. If you've got the time and the wherewithal while you're making those big plans, make your packaging and your product as available to other people as possible.
I think both of you answered that very well. So, yeah, the only thing I would say would be to, yeah, I agree on the local film festival is definitely the way to go with it, and then explore beyond that. You know, if it's not accepted into that, there's film festivals all over the world, and look up the ones that have accreditation from various organizations like the Academy, and yeah, that would be about it really. Other than that, those were good answers. You guys left me with nothing. Thank you.
Well, maybe you could start, Brian, on the next question I have. When is the right time to start thinking about film distribution for your project?
Well, that answer's changed a lot in the last few years due to the streaming's taking over to such a level that before it was about getting distribution in advance because you could get money to market your film to do that, but nowadays you only have a handful of streamers that are in control of everything, which is a good thing ultimately because you don't have to spend a fortune marketing your film to these people. So I don't know, I would say, yeah, I mean, not sure. Yeah, it really depends on the project. If you have a really big cast or something, then you would go for distribution in advance, but if you have a lot of confidence in the project, finish it, have all your sound design, all your music, and show them a finished film, which at which point put your best foot forward. So that's what I would say. So I'd say after you finish everything, unless you needed finishing funds or something. So.
How about, do you two have any different answer for that? When should you start thinking about distribution?
I would say, again, it depends on where you would like to have it seen. A lot of people need a lot of notice. I'm thinking specifically of locally, the Heinz History Center has an African history film series, and they show black films by black filmmakers, and not just African American, but across the entire African diaspora. But they start planning that festival months and months in advance, and they won't know that you're interested in being a part of it if they don't know that you're not making films. So if you would like people like that to know about what's going on, if you're liking people like Kathryn who are planning things in advance to know what's going on, you might want to just start thinking about it and making that list of who it is I would like to see these things, and then gather that information like okay, who is it at the History Center I need to contact? Who is it I need to find at Simbed to put in a film about the African diaspora? Who do I find out at Visio Consortium? So when the time does come, you're not scrambling to figure out when and how do I find these people's contact information and just have them turn you down and not answer the phone and then be all disappointed. You can start knocking on their door so early that they'll be used to you by the time that it's actually finished, and you want to get a little bit of a response for them.
I don't really have anything to say about this. We work with filmmakers directly, and we also work with distributors. So doesn't really, I think as a retired actor who's been on film sets, I think that getting distribution is great, but it's not the end-all be-all. You can still have your film seen by, thousands of people through the festival circuit. It's a wonderful experience because you get feedback, but, and although distribution is changing from, I don't know what I'm doing here to get this feedback. I lost my train of thought. There are more avenues now for short films to be seen. So that's a good thing. But find the folks that love your film and want to share your film with their audiences or people. Because just if you have a distributor who's, a jerk, or just about making money, it doesn't really care about filmmakers, might not be the best place for you and your film. So, you just have to weigh all of that. The end goal shouldn't be like, find a distributor. If it happens and it's a good partnership, great, That's.
It's a very interesting point because I have heard, and you folks may be able to tell tale, about bad film distributors where they get access to your movie, but then they ask for a ton of money and they sort of keep you in a loop. You never really have enough money to get your movie out to places. Any familiarity with that?
There's that, and also to follow up on what she just said was, we had a film years ago, and I only do feature films, so there's a different dynamic with these women next to me. So on a feature film years ago, the investor required a major distributor to be on board before we got the financing. So we went with one, and we were excited to get it, based just on the script, and it was a really big distributor. And when it was all said and done, they didn't do a very good job with the film because by the time we had made the film, a year and a half later, we delivered it to them. They had some other things that were like it, and I felt the film underperformed because it was in the wrong hands. And this is a distributor that's a household name. And then other distributors at the American film market were watching the film and asked why they couldn't have it. They felt they could have done a much better job with it. So it's tricky. You have to. The biggest thing is to do what was just said over here, and that is, if they don't believe in your film, don't let them near your film. You're better off not distributing it at all than having somebody that doesn't care about it. So find somebody that loves it as much as you do.
Oh, you mentioned a place, and so I would like to get an idea. What are film markets? The American film market being one of them. What are they, and how can maybe a first-time person who's making a feature or a short, how could they make use of one of these film markets?
Film markets aren't great for filmmakers. Film festivals are much better for filmmakers. Film markets are more for buyers and sellers. There's not a lot of room for creativity there. So I do attend the American filmmaker market every year, and it's great. It's for selling, off to the foreign market and everything. But it's tough because you'll screen your film, and there'll be a 200-seat theater, and the average person will sit there for 15 minutes and then leave. And you think it's because your film sucks, but reality is they might like it, and they saw enough, and now they're going to tell their boss that they should pick this film up. So, but as a filmmaker, to sit in an audience and, it's a strange feeling. So it's not like a film festival where people are there to watch films. So one experience in particular we had was it was about a 250-seat theater, and I would say the theater was pretty empty by the time the credits rolled at the end, and we were devastated. And the director and I went out and had a few beers. We were very sad, and then our attorney called us, and Sony Pictures was buying the film.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. Do any of you have any familiarity with sales agents? Can they help you? How do you find them? Are they helpful?
I have something to say, but please go first.
Really? Okay. The sales agent's the most important part of the process because what they primarily do is introduce you to the foreign market, where the U.S. is obviously the largest market, but there's a lot of other countries out there that are that you have no access to whatsoever without a sales agent. Let them go to all the different markets and rep your film, and they're selling it to countries that you didn't even know bought films. And so the sales agent is extremely important. And I would say, nowadays, still the best way to find them is through the festivals. They're there. They're there looking for product as much as you are trying to peddle your product. So, get the film out there into the festivals, and they'll find you. And there's also some, there's a local one here too that's pretty good too. So, there's a company called Turnkey. Yeah, and he was a Pittsburgh film crew guy who decided to get into film distribution, and he's done a really terrific job. So
I hadn't heard of him.
yeah, he's really great. it reps hundreds of films, so, that's a huge boost for Pittsburgh.
Kathryn, did you have something to add?
I would only say that all of the sales agents I've dealt with aren't real friendly to film festivals. So when you say that they're there at film festivals, they might be at Tribeca, they might be at Sundance, they might be, like if you get your film into one of those festivals, they might be there. But I'll just give you an example. There's a woman who is from here who works in New York. We loved her short. We played her short. It was runner-up for one of our audience awards. It was a wonderful short film. She went on to make a feature, and we wanted to open Three Rivers Film Festival with it. And it was premiering maybe at South by, and before Three Rivers, like it was, I can't remember if it's South by, but some big name film festival. And they had a sales agent that said no. And I've never heard one more word about that film. So my point is that this is not the only time this has happened where a sales agent is like, no, we're gonna hold on to this and see what we can get for it or whatever. But then that means it's not playing in front of audiences and people aren't seeing it. So, again, it's one of these things where, yes, if your film gets into a top tier film festival, look for a sales agent. And I get it, I understand it. You want to do what's best for your film from that point on. But if your film is not getting into the top tier film festivals, go on the festival circuit and play a lot of festivals and meet a lot of people. And you have no idea what can happen for your film or your career.
Let's see here. What are some short film and feature film distribution companies maybe smaller filmmakers should look at? And how can they reach them and get their attention? Like, what are they looking for? Is that something different than we've discussed yet? Do you have any that you like?
I think I can't tell you what they're looking for because they're all looking for something different. At our Pittsburgh Shorts filmmaker conference last November, we had a distribution panel, and there were distributors from all over the country that came, and they're all looking for something different, and they all have different sort of models. We're all about the film. And so when, we're looking at films to select for our film festivals, we're all about, so I'm not gonna just take all of Neon's films or all of anybody's films. We have a process, everything gets eyeballs on it, 2 for sure, hopefully 3 sets of eyeballs. And we want to put together the best lineup. So when it comes to distributors, you can do homework online. You can go to the Tribeca Film Festival, which is happening right now, and look at their website and look at the films, and they all have print sources listed. A lot of the films don't have distribution because this is their world premiere, but you can look at who's got them and, take pictures and save those names and reach out and submit your films. But again, the idea is that the more you get your film out there and the feedback you get through having audiences talk to you afterwards, it's so valuable. I can't say enough about it. Because you might think it's great, or you might think it's not so great, and then you get this amazing feedback from people that have just watched it. It's like fresh to them. You've worked so hard on it. You put so much blood, sweat, and tears into your work, and then to have an audience see it and give you feedback, there's nothing like it. It's great. And so I'm not answering your question, but there are a slew of distributors out there that everybody's looking for content. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is, if you don't find the distributor that loves your film the way it should be loved, self-distribute. Like I said, there's lots of places where you can take your film where you don't need a distributor, right? So you might not be able to sell it for, to Apple TV for 15 million, like Cooper Rafe and Cha Cha Real Smooth, but you can work your way toward that, right? You have to, along the way, gather your supporters. I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'm gonna add one other story, because this just happened this year to us. We showed a film at Pittsburgh Shorts, not in November of 21, but in November of 2020, that virtual year. And this film almost, there was some conversation that I was not a part of, that it almost didn't make the group of films that I look at the very end, because it was 39 minutes, and we talked before about length. So our festival, the Pittsburgh Shorts Festival, takes films up to 40 minutes, like the Academy is 40 minutes and less for a short film. And I watched the film, was completely blown away by the film, and was like, oh my God, we have to include this. It had scored well in our previewers, but it was just long. And when programmers always want a 39-minute film, that could be 3 13-minute films, and that's like 3 more filmmakers that get their film into the festival. So anyway, long story short, this film made it, and it went on to win our jury prize for Best Narrative. And when I recorded that prize ceremony to show on Zoom, I was talking to the young woman director, just saying that you've got to, this was very early in her festival run. Maybe we were like her second film festival. And I was like, you have to get this film Academy qualified, because I'm telling you, this film, I just know it can be, you could win an Academy Award with this film. It's so, so good. And fast forward a whole year and a couple months later, her film is shortlisted for the Academy Award. So she went on to play a bunch of film festivals, won an Academy qualifying film festival. Does everybody know what that means? Okay, so there are, Brian mentioned this earlier, there are a number, maybe 24, 3 film festivals. There's criteria, we're not quite there yet. You have to be in existence for, I think it's 7 years, and Pittsburgh Shorts is just 6 years old. But anyway, so we're hopeful at some point to be Academy qualifying. But the point is that there are maybe 24, 3 film festivals around the world that are Academy qualifying. If your film wins the top prize at that film festival, you automatically qualify to submit your film to the Oscars for Best Short in 3 categories, live action, documentary, and animation. And so that's how they get their submissions. Your short has to win an Academy qualifying festival, or you can rent a theater for a week in New York or LA and put it up yourself. It either has to have a week-long run in New York or LA, or it has to win an Academy qualifying festival. So this film went on to win at least 1 top prize at an Academy qualifying festival. So she was able to submit it. Then her film got shortlisted. So shortlisted is when they do the first round of cuts. Maybe there are 110 or so qualifying films in each category. And then the first round of cuts is the short list, and they cut it down to 15. So it's the top 15. And then the next cut is the nominees, and she was nominated. She didn't win, but she was one of 5. And honestly, I'm not saying like I know anything. I just know I like this film. And actually, that's what you want. You want people who respond to your film the way you think they should respond to your film. It's not going to be everybody. I don't love everything I see, but I love that film. And I wanted to do absolutely anything and everything I could for her to get her to, you know, to the right places. So you want to find your champions, the people that love your work, right? It was called Alu Kachu, Take and Run, and it was about women being kidnapped to be brides in Kyrgyzstan. A narrative fiction. It was really good.
Wow, awesome. Great answer. Really amazing.
What was the question?
I don't remember. I love it though. A little bit more. What about new media and streaming for my short or feature? I know you mentioned that there aren't that many, but I've heard Roku channel, Tubi, Amazon had a self-distribution model, which then sort of went, by the way, the dodo bird. They've sort of like been throwing people out sometimes, I've heard. Has anybody heard about distribution? Obviously, you know, you're saying maybe you don't want to put it on YouTube right away. Is Kathryn, that's your comment, right? Because you don't want to give it away. But do you find, have you heard about any streaming options that where it sort of it maybe is worth it, short of the week, but if maybe short of the week, anything else that you know of?
You guys, come on. I'm like the blabber. I would just say that, you know, one of the beautiful things about having somebody want your film and use it in some way, be it a film festival, be it a public television station, is that our audiences like what we do because of our curating. I have so many people say, you know, I turn on Netflix and there's just way too much and I don't know what to watch or what to, you know, and even though they have that algorithm and all that, we're actually curating festivals for our audiences. And so if you just put it up on YouTube, I mean, some people might watch it, but it's not, then you, like, we wouldn't want it. Like, you know what I mean? We don't want your film to be available on the internet before we would show it. We actually do a free monthly thing where we call Spotlight, that we send out a short on the first of the month to anybody who's signed up for it and on our database. And you know, those are films that we've usually played at one of our festivals, and then they are now, they've made the festival circuit, and now they're available for free on the internet. So we're just giving it some more legs because we love it for whatever reason, and so we're showing it again because we want to share your films. You know, we want people to see your work.
Yeah. Anything else from you guys? Okay. Moving on. Nice. Very nice. Minette, what about actual TV? Like, Minette works at WQED. What are they interested in? What other options are there out there for, like, just the TV? I mean, so many viewers can see it just from there.
Despite what you heard, broadcast television is not dead. The corpse isn't cold just yet, and there are still lots of good places to see and share your product and your content. I'll just talk about what I do and then go from there. I produced a show called Filmmakers Corner. There's at least 10 people in this room who I can look at who've had films on Filmmakers Corner. We are going to be starting our 14th season in October, and it's local, independent, and student film. Thank you, Kathryn. And what people just submit films. It comes on Saturday night, it's 10 o'clock, it's an hour long. Sometimes I have short shows where I will cram as many short films into it as I possibly can. Sometimes I'll have one really beautiful film that fills out the entire hour, and it's just time enough for me to say, hi, the name of this film is blah, blah, and if you'd like to submit your film at the end, and it totally takes up the entire block of an hour. But it's there to serve the community and serve as another platform for people to get their work out there. The criteria for getting on the show, it's myself and my executive producer pretty much have last word on what that content is. But it's animation, it's experimental, it's documentary, sometimes it's spoken word, sometimes it's performance, sometimes it's pure narrative, sometimes it's a mixture of all of those things in one film. But it's there for you, as corny as that may sound. So that's the local version of what public broadcasting can do for local filmmakers. On a national level, there's a program that's been on for several years called Independent Lens, and it's an award-winning indie film series that's almost purely documentary, and it airs on Tuesday nights on PBS. There are various programming consortiums through PBS where they curate films from various communities, from the LGBTQ community, from the African American community, from all the diaspora communities, and you can submit through various platforms where they gather the resources, and you can submit your film to them, and they will actually work your way up the chain if you're good enough, and you will be seen nationally on PBS. Outlets outside of Filmmakers Corner, Monday nights, Thursday nights, and Saturday nights on WQED are dedicated to locally produced program. And though usually it's one of our own documentaries, and we are constantly producing documentaries here at WQED, and some of them are really good, and if you haven't seen them, just go on the WQED website, and if you love Rick Seaback, you can see everything he's ever done in his life on those, as well as all the other talented producers here at WQED. But we also accept documentary submissions and program submissions for people who are from the Pittsburgh area. In the tri-state area, actually. We've had everything from a film called The Shot Felt Round the World, which was a documentary on Jonas Salk and the polio vaccine. We had one called We Knew What We Had, which is a jazz documentary produced at the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild about the history of Pittsburgh's jazz and African American community. We've had so many documentaries that came. There's one called Lost and Found, where a filmmaker, Andy Kellerman, locally went to different places that had been deemed like the old Wilkinsburg train station and the old mental asylum out in somewhere, I forget where it is. That's it. Ding, ding, ding. But those are the kinds of programs that, you know, they're beautifully shot, they're well made, they tell a story that is particular to this region and to the people in this area, and these people come to us and say, could you put my show on WQED? And it's a bit of a rigmarole, honestly. Like, I watch it, David, the executive producer, watches it, then our legal department watches, then we vet again and we ask all these questions. Have you signed all your releases? Yada, 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 all the legal stuff that you have to do. But it does show up on your local public television station. And if you guys are from anywhere around here, nothing will make your parents happier than to have your show on Channel 13 and like be able to tell your mom that. That just, I know you. Yeah, hi. Sorry. So that's one of the ways you can do it locally. There are also programming services. Everybody thinks of PBS as like, you know, she's Queen Elizabeth. She's got this big old crown with lots of jewels on it, and you can't get within 10 feet of her. But there's also American Public Television, which is a distribution arm, and we are a contributing and sponsoring station for them. So that is also another way. If your film has been completed, before you throw it on the internet for free or go to a distributor who may rob you blind, you could come and say, could you possibly think about being the presenting station for this film? And again, you'll have to go through some hoops and submit it and have conversations, and there's a long, long list, because honestly, I get at least 5 or 6 phone calls every week of people with great films who want to get them on the air one way or the other. But persistence is the way of all things. And if you do it, and if it's good enough, you can find a place on your local broadcast station. But, as I told PJ before, we're not the only game in town. Locally, there is the old and much respected PCTV, which is Pittsburgh's local public access station. The criteria for PCTV used to be you would go and take their training program, and once you'd passed a certain amount of tests, you could have a half-an-hour program over their air that would air for somewhere 30 to 60 days. You could be the person who makes a film show on PCTV. You go through certain obligations and things you have to do, but it's there, and it's an opportunity for you to get your film out there on, once again, broadcast television. I'm looking at Nick. Nick runs the local arm of a project called the Video Consortium, and it's this collective, and it's starting in several cities, and it's for non-fiction filmmakers. It's a place to get together, to talk ideas, to trade secrets. It's this great place for you to talk about documentary film and put it out there into the world and get tips from people who do the same thing. So that's something local that you could look up. There's PJ, of course, with the 48-hour film project, this iteration and the horror iteration. If you like hanging out with your friends and just shoving stuff out there and like really twisting your brain around a project, I can't think of anything better. Kathryn, full disclosure, I'm on Kathryn's board, just so you guys know, and we've been friends for about 75 years, so. But your local film festivals can do you no wrong. I mean, there are people there who care about you and want to see you succeed. So it can be the teeniest, tiniest local film festival in the world, but enter it. Luckily for us and the films that we present at Film Pittsburgh, we don't make the entry fee so large that you can't possibly think about entering it. You don't have to decide, am I going to pay my gas bill or I'm going to enter this film festival? You can do both. We don't have layaway, but it's not that bad.
That is such an important point. So a lot of the film festivals, and it doesn't have to just be top tier, film festivals charge an arm and a leg. We do not. We charge a little bit because we're a nonprofit and we have to raise money and we have to watch the films, and that takes time, and it all costs money to do what we do. But our prices are very, very reasonable. And in fact, we have a deadline coming up, and I have cards if anybody wants one. Just tells you where to submit at Film Freeway. But we have a deadline, and maybe Wendy Iben could tell me when that deadline is. Is it? Oh, so early bird pricing ends Wednesday, or maybe it ends Thursday, I'm not quite sure, but June 15th. So hit me up for a card if you want that. But the other thing I wanted to say is, like, that's this whole idea. If you put aside X amount of dollars for film festival submissions, and you see that they're exorbitantly expensive, maybe pick one or two, to submit to, if you really have your heart on that and you really have gotten feedback from people other than your mother telling you that this film is really, really great, then go to one, try to do one or two, but then pick some regional film festivals, right? And the fees should be lower, and always look for those early birds, what the dates are. It requires a lot of work and legwork and doing your due diligence, but that's what you should do. And also look at what the film festivals are looking for. What are these film festivals known for? What type of film is your film? And where would be a good fit for it, right? You can get a sense from that, from the Film Freeway pages. Thank you for saying that.
Just a couple more things about local presentation and ways to get your film out there. There is an organization called Jump Cut, and they do something, it's an iteration of something called Film Kitchen. If you guys remember from the old Pittsburgh Filmmakers days, second Tuesday of every month was Film Kitchen, and in their room, their main auditorium, they would show local films. Film Kitchen lives on. It's curated by Matthew Day, who actually was the curator of Film Pittsburgh back at those times at Pittsburgh Filmmakers. And they do it at the Parkway Theater in McKees Rocks. And they take submissions, and you can see your film on the big screen. And for, I think, a couple of hours on a Tuesday night, it's nothing but local films. Sometimes they'll mix it up. They just did like a festival with like Gamera and Godzilla, but then they threw some local stuff in there too. So sometimes you'll get a mixed bag. But that's a really, really cool way to get it out there. And I also just want to say, you can't say enough about curating your audience. There's a local lady, her name is Therese Rocco, and she was the first female police. She worked in the, first missing persons bureau, and she has these horrendous stories about what it was like to come up through the ranks of the Pittsburgh police as a woman in the 1960s. And of course, her allies were Gwen Elliott, who was the first African-American woman police commander, and Muggsy Moore, who was the first black police chief. But these people worked together and were fundamental in Therese becoming who she was. Now, there's not a lot of big audience of people like older ladies telling their stories of overcoming adversity, but what she did was she went to Oakland Catholic. So she started having a screening at Oakland Catholic. Then the Women and Girls Foundation said, let's have a screening for our members and our women, and then the YWCA had a screening, and then the Heinz History Center had a screening. So by cultivating and curating young women and middle-aged women and older women who cared about the history of Pittsburgh and just overcoming discrimination in Pittsburgh, she was able to plow a path for herself and find a place to show her film and serve people. So there are people in your neighborhood, in your churches, in the organizations that you belong to or your parents belong to who care about the same things you care about, who probably have a projector or at the very least a laptop and a clean white sheet, and that can be one way to get your film out there and get people watching it who may not have ever seen it before and don't know how talented you are and that you've got a good story to tell.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. Before I let you go, I just wanted to open it up for just one or two questions. Does anybody here have a burning question? Yes, Nick.
I'm Nick. I run Czar Production Studios. Just like a lot of us here, just a small, self-generated kind of guy. My biggest question is, a lot of distribution companies, because, how do I say this? The biggest nail in the coffin is the expenses for distribution companies. For us having pretty much little to no money, how can we ever get across those fees to be able to get big distribution?
I'm sorry, what fees are you referring to? Like marketing fees or?
Yeah, like marketing fees, things like that. The reason I ask is I know somebody in Ohio, and he talks about distribution, and he always says that some of the minimum fees for these distribution companies are like $30,000.
Well-
Is that average? Is that high?
Well, you should find one that doesn't charge you anything at all. They can collect it, from sales, but they should have to perform for you. So yeah, nobody should be charging you money up front. I know they do that, but that's risky. I wouldn't go with anybody that would charge up front.
Yes.
I have no idea, oh, thanks, dear. I have no idea whether or not National PBS pays for that. I know that as members of the PBS system, each station has to pay into it, so I don't know if being the presenting station would cover those fees, or if you are hired by them. I don't know the answer to that question. I do know locally we don't compensate the filmmakers for the films that we do air on WQED.
I have one friend who did have a film distributed through PBS, now in Espanyol. That was the name of the film, and it was all about the SAP performers from, I think it was the first Housewives show, not the Real Housewives, but the original non-Real Housewives show. And she did make some money.
Film Pittsburgh pays for all feature films, or I would say 95% of the feature films that we show. And if you get accepted into a film festival with a feature film, the standard in the industry is that unless you're I keep saying Tribeca because I just came back from that festival, which is happening right now. And someone said to me while I was there, Tribeca doesn't pay for anything. Film Pittsburgh helps you to travel to Film Pittsburgh to us if you're not from here. If you have a feature, we pay you a rental fee. And what I wanted to say to you is that if you get accepted into a film festival with a feature that's not and they're not offering you, it's fine to ask for travel assistant. It's fine to ask for a rental fee. It might not be a lot, but it is fine and acceptable for you to ask for that. For short films, the short film standard is not the same. I mean, we at Film Pittsburgh have been doing feature films for a lot longer than we've been doing shorts. Only 6 years have been doing shorts. I sort of feel like that market is changing a little bit, and that at some point soon, there's a lot of conversation about supporting filmmakers and how can we do that. But obviously, if you're showing, I think we showed 120 short films last year, it's a lot of money, even if you only give, $50 to a filmmaker. So know that we're thinking about it and that we want to support filmmakers. We do have jury prizes, so if you win one of the jury prizes, you get $1,000. So, but that's still only like 3, or I think in our case we give away 5 prizes. But I digress.
Okay, one last question. And, yes, sir.
I had 2 questions, but they're kind of interconnected. The first one is I work with sound and I'm a Foley artist. So what would I do to get myself connected to other people who are making films? And the other question that I have is, if I'm independent at this point, because I've been working as a production person and video editing for an independent company, how do I start working with other people?
Ooh. Well, I'll tell you in regards to what really working with these folks, I will tell you a couple things. First of all, I'd like to remind you that film festivals are a great place to meet successful filmmakers. And in Pittsburgh, chief among them are the Film Pittsburgh film festivals. In fact, you might consider that Film Pittsburgh is serving you on a silver platter some of the most successful filmmakers in the world, some of which are from Pittsburgh, but some of which are not. And they are coming here, you can see their movie, and you can walk right up to them and hand them your business card and say, you know what, I saw your movie and it was pretty darn good, but there's one thing that would have made it better. Me. Hire me. So one thing to keep in mind, at festivals, that is possible. It's also possible at events like this, right? Meet people, make your tribe, and then start building up from there, right? Keep meeting more people. The person who's sitting right next to you, those guys need Foley artists. I bet they do. So, okay, we have to move on to the rest of we have some other things that we want to do. But these guys are here. They're not leaving just yet. Please, first, give them a round of applause. Kathryn, Spitz, Cohan, Minette, Seate, Brian Hartman,